By number one, telling you that you could hire this out, and that's probably your best use of capital is like just hiring it out, letting someone that does this consistently do it for you. That's my opinion. That's what I've done on every single sub two deal I've ever done. Um, you could do the paperwork on your own. It's not like extremely difficult as long as you know like what needs to be in place at closing. But I do think having somebody to look over it before closing is a good idea because the one thing about these sub two deals is that you're getting in a long-term relationship with somebody, right? And so whether you were getting in a business partnership with, someone in the Zoom, for example, on this call, regardless if it's that or a sub two deal, you want to have good paperwork that at least outlines disclosures, what's going to happen, what's expected of both parties, all that good stuff. So let's kind of go through this. I'm going to share my screen. All right. And I actually have some examples here. So we can kind of go through one by one, um, the four or five different things that I recommend having at closing. And then I'll actually show you like the actual document so you can see at least what they look like. Like I said, I don't really manage my own. These are kind of just bullet points real quick to get through. Um, all of mine, I use a transaction coordinator. There's some that are super cheap. There's some that are not so cheap. I would say at some point it probably makes sense to like have one in-house if you're transacting at a regular amount. We're about to get to that point where we're probably going to do that ourselves. But for now, we hired out like on a one-off. If you haven't done a deal yet, you're wanting to do your first deal. I would recommend a company called Creative TC. That's who I've used. Caleb Christopher is the owner of it, and he's a good friend of mine. Marcelo also is a good friend of mine. He's actually moving here to Nashville, and they've taught me almost everything I know about creative finance. To be honest, I give them a lot of credit. And so, even if you just want to like pick their brain, hop on a Zoom call and just talk through, some questions that you have, they're they're really solid, and they do a good job with managing deals too. So, they do sub two wraps, seller financing, all that kind of stuff. If you want, just tell them Evan sent you and they'll take care of you. It's not like an affiliate or anything like that, but that's what I use. One thing I want to bring up though is when you talk about paperwork, right? A lot of times people look at paperwork on the front end and they're like, okay, this is what protects you. And there's some truth to that, but can anybody maybe call out why that's not a complete sentence? Why does paperwork alone not protect you?
Um, when it comes to lenders, especially in our instance where you're doing sub two and you're kind of going around the bank, the lender themselves, they might have an instance where they want to call them note due for whatever reason. They feel like you deceived them, so on and so forth. So that's another
Mhm.
instance where paperwork really won't protect you right there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that. Anything else?
It might be different interpretations of the paperwork, even.
Yep. 100%. And that kind of comes to a third point, which is paperwork is only as good as or only as strong as your willingness to enforce it, right? So, if I get in a business partnership with someone that's shady, we have this paperwork that says, hey, you can't go, steal money from the company, and they go steal it. Okay, how do I enforce that paperwork? Does it just automatically happen where I just win a bunch of money? It's like, no, that's not how the real world works. So you need to think about that in this context of like, this is good for if the seller ghosts you, disappears, right? Where you can actually speak to the mortgage company and the insurance, right? Maybe the servicer changes, maybe there's problems that show up. And it's good for just convenience because you don't have to involve the seller, right? Anymore on a sub two deal. Ideally, that's kind of the goal where you don't have to keep bringing up the memory of like, hey, it's been 4 years and the loan's still in your name. That's kind of like a nice thing just to like let them stay out of the picture. But if a seller decides to get nasty with you or they're unreasonable, no amount of paperwork is really going to solve that problem. It's really just kind of like a threat or a safety measure. Almost like um, I've heard someone talk about it this way. It's like you have a deadbolt on your door, but a robber can still come and break the deadbolt, right? So it doesn't solve all your problems. So first thing we need obviously is a purchase and sales agreement. This obviously establishes the intent, defines consideration, what the purchase is going to be, sets expectations, but this needs to be really clean and simple. So I'll show you kind of an example of like a recent deal that we just did. Let me pull this up. Where is it? All right. So block some of this out so we can actually go over it. Can everyone see this? All right, cool. So obviously have the address here. This is the contract that Creative TC uses. So I like their contract. I think it's really solid. But you have all your stuff, seller, earnest money, just like a normal agreement. Same thing. There's our company, closing cost. And I want you to see this. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I think some people think it's so complicated to like have a sub two contract. And this is my sub two contract. You ready? In additional terms, buyer is purchasing the property subject to the existing mortgage. Oh my gosh. That was so complicated. I don't know how we did that. That's crazy. It doesn't have to be complicated. People are like, I don't know what to say. Say that. The buyer is purchasing the property subject to the existing mortgage. Does everyone feel like they can do that? I hope so. That's my encouragement this week, okay? And then I like to have an additional thing here at the bottom where approximate purchase price of X is made up of the following. So you kind of break down what your approximate purchase price is. Can anyone tell me why were you saying approximate purchase price and not just purchase price?
Does it allow you to renegotiate down the line if something comes up?
It's close.
Uh, Go ahead.
No, contingent upon like closing date, taxes, titles due, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't know what, taxes are gonna be. We don't know. Well, actually, that wouldn't really affect the purchase price because the seller's got to pay taxes regardless of what they sell it for. But essentially, like you don't know the exact mortgage payoff. Probably not when you're signing this contract, unless you've just ordered a payoff before you sign a contract, which would be weird, right? So we don't know the exact mortgage amount. What's on the statement is not the exact payoff. Does everyone agree with that?
Mhm.
You got to order a payoff, right? So approximate first mortgage of let's say $100,000. By the time you get to closing, that could be 102, that could be 98. You don't really know what that is. And when I didn't do this in the past, what would end up happening is the seller would basically make another 2 grand, or I have to like pay an extra two or three because of the mortgage changing. So you want to say approximate, at least from how I've done it. If you're reinstating a loan, same thing, approximate reinstatement of X. And then usually you're going to have some kind of cash to the seller. Those are kind of usually the three or four things that are going to be involved in the purchase price. In this case, the seller wasn't getting any cash. So that's why that's not there. Anything else? Normal PSA. And that's it. So that's a sub two PSA. Simple enough. Does anybody have any questions on that before we move on? I want to try to get through all this, bring the most value as I can. All right, cool. All right. Second thing, and this is probably the biggest thing out of all of it, would be the subject to addendum. Okay, so this is full disclosure of what sub two is, what are the risk, telling them, the loan's going to stay in your name. And the whole idea of this is for the seller to acknowledge the risk as well. Because the last thing you want is to go through closing, and I've seen this happen where you don't have these disclosures in place and the seller can kind of claim like they didn't know what was going on, or they were never told that the mortgage wasn't going to be paid off. Like I've heard crazy things, and I've heard like I have a buddy right now, a close friend of mine that's getting sued because the wholesaler didn't have good disclosures. So I would highly I see some people sitting up in their seats now. I'd highly pay attention to this. So sub to addendum, yours can be different. This is what I use with Creative TC. So if you want to get any of this, I would go for them. So let's go through the important pieces of this. It's been a long time since I've actually read these to the seller. What I used to do is I used to send this with the purchase and sales agreement. I would send both, just like on the front end, just so there was no like complications down the line. What I do now is I send the purchase and sales agreement, and then as we're like heading to closing, here's what I don't recommend. I think this is really sleazy. I would not recommend dropping this on the closing table the day of closing with the seller. Because it's like you're putting them in a spot where like they've maybe spent money on other things because they're getting money from you at closing and they've already moved their pack their stuff. And then all of a sudden they're seeing some of these risks that maybe they didn't know about or whatever, right? And most of the time it's not an issue. But how we do it within our company is we send them these things before closing, usually like a week or two before closing for them to be able to review and ask questions. And most of the time, it's like people don't read stuff anyways, which is the sad part. And I wish they did. Most people just sign, 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 so it's not a big deal. But I think it's good to at least send this because how I like to think about it in my business is if I ever got caught in front of a judge, like what does the intent look like? And does it look like I was as transparent as possible about the risk? That's what I want. I don't want it to be like he said this, she said that. It's like, no, you signed an initial on like every single point stating you understood this, right? So, number one, stating that there's an insurance requirement, there's an assignment of insurance proceeds, which allows you to essentially get a refund check whenever you switch out the insurance policy, which I'll show you that's a document as well. Um, Here's kind of the buyer's representations and warranties, which I think is good too because it's not one-sided, where it's just saying that, the seller's the only person that has some kind of responsibility. And at times, this has really helped to explain this to potential sellers when they're kind of worried of like, what happens if you just make the payment or you get the rent and then you don't make my payments? Like, what do I do then? You can kind of explain to them that we are aware that equity skimming is a federal crime, so you could go to jail for this. Where if the buyer takes the payments like income and doesn't pay the underlying mortgage, or you wrap the property and don't pay the underlying mortgage, like that's a federal crime. So it's a serious thing, right? So I think that's important to recognize, and you can share that with the seller as well. Also, the buyer acknowledging there's an existing due on sale clause, kind of explaining roughly what that is. And then here's what we have the seller sign. So there's no further ownership or control. The existing loan's not paid in full. There's continued liability on the existing loans. The existing loan's going to be on your credit report. You can't deduct mortgage interest anymore since you're selling the property, right? We control that. Trying to think any other important ones here. Even staying like at a high level, it's like even if we failed to make timely payments, like that, yes, that would still affect your credit, right? And it's still you're still accountable to the lender at the end of the day. Your name's on the mortgage, right? Due on sale clause, property insurance proceeds, and then this is not a formal assumption. So there can't be any like, oh, I thought this was an assumption. Like I thought my name was gonna come off the mortgage. Like, does anybody feel like that's not like crystal clear on the loan staying in their name? That's kind of the point, right? Same thing here, like cooperation after close of escrow. And here's kind of what we have here too. You don't have to have this. I've seen some people kind of get scared off by this, but I leave it in here now, where the seller is not going to take any action against our ownership or control of the property, or really any kind of cause any problems like going to the property. Like I've heard problems with that, where like they're trying to kind of mess with the tenants or whatever it is, right? I've heard of times where they try to like get a loan called due, for example, calling the mortgage company, things like that. And so we have that in here where they understand that in the event that the seller breaches this provision, that all parties agree that the amount entitled to liquidated damages should be, and you can put your amount for us, it's like 20,000. Now, are we actually going to enforce this? Like the likelihood's probably not, but kind of like a newspaper where you like whack someone on the top of the head if they start acting up. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you signed this, and like if you want to get nasty, then like we can do that too. Right? Because we're holding up at our end of the bargain. We've reinstated your loan, we've gave you cash, we paid your agent commission, we made payments on time. So for you to go act like this, like that's not cool. Right? Um that's basically the sub 2 addendum. I think people usually have questions on this, but I'll stop here. Do y'all have questions on anything in this addendum before we move on? Cool. All right, sweet.
I've got a question. Is
Yeah, what's up?
was your transaction coordinator get both of these, the PSA and addendum signed, or are you completely out of it? Do they do all of
Mm-hmm.
that? I've heard some TC say, "Well, I'll provide the paperwork, but I won't actually be the one to sign it or get it signed."
Yeah, so we like I write up my own PSA, I'll send it to them, they sign, then I sign, and then the TC from there just sends me and then the seller the paperwork for both of us to sign throughout the transaction. Yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah.
Um, Next one is third party authorization. So this allows you to speak with the mortgage company to handle kind of like statements or issues that may arise. And let's kind of show that real quick. This is one piece of it. Basically, simple authorization form. If you've been doing this long enough, you've probably even seen this from a title company where they'll get an authorization to be able to order a payoff from the mortgage company, like on your behalf, that kind of thing. So this one's important for you to be able to send to the mortgage company so they know like, hey, you're an authorized user on the account, where you can actually, um, inquire about information. But really, the bigger one that's more important in my opinion is having this durable limited power of attorney, because number one, if the seller's unavailable, if they're not responding, even if they passed away, there's some. How do I get into this? Um, Legally, whenever someone passes away, a limited power of attorney is like from what I've heard, is supposed to be null and void. But the mortgage company doesn't always know that. And number two, they're not always gonna like change that on file anyways, even if they found out. And so I haven't had this issue. And so what you're gonna do is when you close, you're gonna get your limited power of attorney, which allows you to make decisions based on the mortgage, the property, insurance, kind of those three things, nothing else, right? You can't make decisions about what happens with their health or anything like that, right? So it's limited to the property, the mortgage, the insurance. And it's a strong document because, I mean, most people are not going to reject this. Like they signed a notarized document saying they're giving you power of attorney. There's not much like stronger than that. And so how I like to do it is like at closing, I'm going to upload that through the portal, or I'm going to email like support with the mortgage company, just send them the power of attorney and say, hey, I need this on file so that I can call. And when I call, I'm going to say I'm the asset manager, right? I'm the asset manager for the property. I'm calling. I have a limited power of attorney. Um, Please let me speak to blah 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 blah. And then I'm going to go through, right? And at that point, it's almost like the seller talking to him, right? They're not going to keep anything from you at that point. So that limited power of attorney, here's what this looks like at a high level. And again, I mentioned at the beginning that paperwork only protects you so much because power of attorneys are also um, usually revocable, where they could take it back and say I don't want this anymore, right? And even though this says irrevocable, if somebody doesn't want you to have one anymore, they can find a way, right? So make sure you have a good relationship. Okay. Same thing. Here's some of the powers, right? So I can make endorsements. So like you can cash checks that are in their name, which I've done before, where like if you get a new policy on the property, you cancel their old policy using your power of attorney. They send a check to your address, and you cash that in with your bank. Not every bank's willing to do that, but I've found banks that are willing to do that. Okay. Same thing. You can sell, do whatever you want with the property, negotiate with third parties. I like that that's kind of more general because it can be a lot of things. Same thing, you can file and collect insurance claims. Those are kind of the main important ideas. And see, this is a notarized document. Cool. Any questions on that? We're rolling through this. This is good. Okay. Next one is assignment of insurance proceeds. This is pretty simple, but this is what we were just talking about, where if for some reason there's some kind of issue with you like cashing the check, or even with the insurance company like not wanting to talk to you or like give you the check or anything like that, that's where this comes in really handy. Because if you can send in a power of attorney and this, it's like there's not really much argument there for why you can't cash this, right? Let's kind of go through this. And on one of these pages here, it's going to tell the insurance company how you want the check written out. See, assign any refund to the property manager, quote unquote, right? Because you are managing the asset. They can put it in my name. They can put it in my name, FBO, seller's name, and if there's another seller. In this case, there were two sellers, right? Same thing here, seller name and seller name, C/care of John Evan Ragsdale, right? Same thing, going to be notarized. Cool. Questions on that? Anything? All right, cool. Last thing, this isn't absolutely necessary, but I like to have this before closing because you just never know what's going to happen, is a mortgage information sheet where ideally your TC takes some of this off your plate, where they have like the servicer info, right? The lender, the loan number, and then ideally you can have like utilities on here. I'll show you ours real quick. But ideally, they have like their last four of their social in case the mortgage company needs it, the mailing address for them, their email, their name, but also like the loan number, which is super important. Any kind of like username and password for a mortgage portal, which is going to be very useful as well. And I'll share this too because I I used to think this stuff wasn't important until we had a deal recently. That I think is Griffin still in here? Yeah, he is. That Griffin and I were working where we had a deal that was in foreclosure. It was the day before the auction sale, the foreclosure sale. And we took the risk to reinstate the loan. We had the seller sign a general warranty deed over to us. And that night, I hardly ever do this. I usually just wait till kind of the TC handles it. But that night I was like, hey, let's go ahead and change your mortgage portal information since we're taking it sub two. Let's go ahead and just change that to, mine just so I can control it and that kind of stuff. So we did it. I go to his house the next day and he's not there, which I'm like, that's kind of strange, but that happens with foreclosures. Like sometimes people just disappear. And we find out that this guy got in a car wreck and died that night, that he signed the warranty deed to us like 2 or 3 hours later, which is like, what are the odds of that? Crazy. And it's really sad. We were alcoholic, really struggling, and we were trying to give him a place to be. And yeah, it was hard. I know it was hard for Griffin too. But really, it would have been a huge issue if we hadn't changed that information because how are we going to get a payoff now? The mortgage company won't talk to me. I mean, and he hasn't signed an authorization for the title company. So you could have been really stuck. Like, yes, technically we own the property, but it's like, how are we going to pay off this loan? I guess you could pay a little bit over it, and just kind of hope. But I don't know, man. Sounds tough. So that's why some of this is important. Again, like I said, this doesn't fix like crazy sellers or someone that like resents you, any kind of like poor communication. But at the end of the day, like I think it's important to have this stuff here because it's really about disclosure. It's about creating good boundaries with the seller and everything being up front where they can't go back later and say, hey, I didn't know what was going on. They know. That's why we do this. So I'm going to leave the rest of the call open for questions on this, anything else. Let me look through. There's one thing. It looks like I had a question here from Eli. How long does it normally take for you to see a refund check for insurance after closing? Eli, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm gonna clarify. How long does it normally take for you to see a refund check for insurance after closing? So, like after you cancel their policy, how long does it take to get the check in the mail? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I've seen it take like 2 to 4 weeks usually,
Okay. Is it
something like that.
is it normally too late to switch addresses after? Because I closed on one back in November, but
Hmm.
I was ignorant to the I mean, I got my own insurance policy, but was ignorant to the that you could, get a refund check for insurance. Is it too late to go back and change address and stuff like that?
Do you know if it's been canceled yet?
Yeah, the seller's insurance was canceled the day of closing or the day after closing.
They've probably already received it then.
Okay.
But you could call and ask
Okay.
because maybe there's a chance they didn't cash it.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty sly. They go to cash it and they're like, "What the heck?"
What are you talking about?
You're like, "Peace, see ya."
Well,
Yeah.
that's
So
all right either way, but yeah, just for future.
yeah, dude, I've missed out on so much extra, like not extra money because you're kind of paying it into escrow, but I've lost money by not doing that, by not having the assignment of insurance proceeds and the POA. I mean, straight up, I hate to admit it, but I probably have lost 20,000 plus by not doing that
Mm.
over the amount of deals that we've done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, it's pretty huge.
Yeah. It's a lot of sushi money. Could go have fun with
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
now I can't. So good question. What else we got? Any question could be deals, could be
Yeah,
creative, not creative.
you mentioned looking out for like, sellers who are maybe difficult to work with. Is there anything in particular that sticks out to you as being like red flags in terms of like who would be not a good fit for subject to?
Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, it is kind of a feeling thing for me, but I think the common things that I see that make me feel iffy, whenever sellers they're really hung up on like how long the loan's going to be in their name. I kind of worry about those people a little bit. Like if they're like, how long is it going to be? Is it going to be 3 years, 4 years, like 2 years? I don't want it to be that long. Those kind of people, I want to clarify a little bit more and ask like, what's the biggest concern for them, and let them know that I just can't make a promise. And if they seem hesitant about it, I don't know. I'm a little hesitant too because I don't want them to come 2, 3 years down the line and be upset about it.
Sure.
So
And you
that's
wouldn't like put in like a balloon clause in that, or like say like after X number of years, I'm going to refinance. Like you wouldn't include terminology like that, would you?
I never have. That's not true actually. I early on when I first started, there was a guy that just like would not budge on it because he was a veteran and he wanted his like eligibility. And so me like not really knowing how to negotiate, I kind of was just like, okay, like let's do a 5 year balloon. And the issue is like at that time I was just wholesaling, right? So like I couldn't get anyone to buy the deal. And got to the point where like there had to just be no balloon basically. I'm not saying there aren't buyers for those deals that have balloons, but I just think that most of the time someone that's willing to accept like a subject to offer isn't gonna be like super like persuaded or pushed over the edge because there's a 5 year balloon. I think you're better off just being honest and you can tell them like a general time frame. That's what I do. Like they ask like how long is the loan going to be in place? I tell them like, hey, I I can't tell you an exact number because I don't have a crystal ball of what's going to happen. What I can tell you is what normally happens is anywhere between like a 4 and like 7 year period. Now it could be shorter, and it definitely could be longer. So I need you to be okay with that. But that's a general time frame, and usually that's a pretty easy way around it. Very rarely do I have someone be like, okay, well, I really need a balloon though. Like, and if that's the person, they probably weren't going to sell it to you anyways, even if you gave them the balloon. I can almost promise you. Those people are usually wasting your time.
Got it.
Yeah.
What is it about a balloon that scares away investors?
Um, David, if you can hear me, maybe you can answer this question since you own
Yeah,
way more properties than I do. Like you as a buyer, like why would that scare you away?
sure, sure. So the biggest value is that low rate, and the longer you hold that rate, the more cash flow and wealth you build. So if you're keeping it for the long term, as I do as rentals, then you want that rate as long as possible because, again, the longer you hold it, the more principal is paid off towards the end because it's front loaded with interest. So it just keeps getting better and better on that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's a good point. Also with, you know, someone like, David or the guys in the group that have reserves and can pay things off and that kind of stuff may not be as worried. But for someone just getting started, especially, you don't want to have this timeline where you got to sell it in 3, 4 years when you have no idea what's going to happen in the next 3, 4 years. You just don't know. I mean, we've seen it the last 3, 4 years now. It's like imagine if you had a balloon coming up, that wouldn't be fun, especially if you bought a property that had no equity. So, yeah, good question. Now, it might be different if you have a seller finance deal at like 0% and it pays down so quickly. That may be a different conversation. Yeah. What else we got? Other questions, thoughts, deals?
I got one. Got a guy that he is 21,000 in arrears, and for 13 months, no payment. And right now, working with the lender to try and get a loan modification done for him. I'm a little nervous. Never dealt with one that had this long. Usually it's 3 months, six, whatever. Not a whole year. Um, and my question is it common for the lender just be like, "Hey, I'm washing my hands. We're going to go ahead foreclose them."
You said he's 21,000 in arrears.
Yeah,
Um, Gosh, who's the lender? Do you know?
Celine Finance.
Okay. Um, Gosh, it just depends. You
Yeah,
really don't know until you ask them. Um, we've seen people get approved for loan modifications like literally the day before. Like it's so stupid. And
yeah,
sometimes it honestly screws us because we'll be like trying to help them stop an auction and then they get like approved for loan mod and they don't need us anymore. And it's like, gosh, you know.
yeah.
But we're
It's
happy
it's
for people
crazy.
to.
It's just that I've never, like I said, I've never dealt with one this immense. You know what I mean? Like normally for me, it's like, oh, they're like 6 months, 8 months, whatever. But for him to
Okay.
be that far behind, I mean, bought it literally in 2023, so you can tell he has no equity to play
Oh,
with. Yeah.
they're
So
probably more likely to give it to him then.
yeah.
I would think so. I mean, because like if they foreclose, they're gonna lose a ton of money.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Probably.
for
I mean,
sure.
I maybe not, but I mean, I'm assuming.
I mean, I'd imagine. I mean, and it's in its state. I mean, it needs work on it anyway. So I'd imagine that there really isn't nothing that they would gain from it, regardless. So they're more likely, and then like I explained to them, it just makes more sense if we work as a team to make sure that you guys don't lose and he doesn't lose at the same time.
Yeah. Is it a VA loan?
No, it's a
FHA?
the
Conventional?
FHA.
Um, we had one, this was like I think last week or the week before that the seller, like we were on the phone with them trying to help them out. And, usually with a loan modification, you have to um send in like income documents and like pay stubs and
Yeah,
like show that you have the money and you can afford it, that kind of thing. But with this FHA, for some reason with this lender, they were like, "Hey, since this loan is FHA, like we don't need any of that. We just need you to say that you can afford it."
yeah.
That was literally it. And I'm not joking. We got on the phone like 4 different times just to make sure that like this customer rep wasn't just like dumb and saying the wrong thing, but like it really, and she got accepted. Like she just had to be like, "Yeah, I can afford it." And they
Oh
approved
wow,
her for like it was like 25 grand. I'm like, "What is happening?"
that's wild.
So it tells you
I don't
something
know
though,
about y'all,
man.
man. I see people get 6, 7 loan mods in a row. But I'm in
Yes.
New
What?
York though, so I don't know if it's different, but I see
Yes,
mad
dude.
loan mods all the time.
Yes. Dude, the Griffin I don't know if yeah, Griffin's still on here. We had one when Griffin first started working with us that was in North Carolina when we were marketing there, and the lady was like 220,000 in arrears. I was like, how is this even possible? Like it wasn't even and it wasn't like a very expensive house. It wasn't like $1 million home. Like I'm like this did she ever she's just been like living free for 10 years or like I don't even
That's
know
wild.
how that's even possible, you know? So some lenders are just like, I'm just gonna chill, I guess. So yeah. I don't know,
Chill.
man.
How y'all chilling? Y'all never got a dollar back.
That's what I'm saying. I guess they're not needing the money. They're like, you're good. So trying to help someone out. Keep me updated on how that deal goes though. If you need help with it, let me know.
Well then,
That's cool that you're helping them out. I respect that.
yeah,
How's
it's
the
crazy. I
flooring
mean,
stuff? How's the flooring business?
man, it's insane, man. I ain't even going lie with you. I mean, all glory to God, but this is insane. I ain't have my head feel like it's gonna explode trying to keep up with everything.
Mm, good dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I've met some good people, built some good relationships, and prosper, and I can't say enough about it, man.
That's awesome. If anybody needs a great floor, there you go. Floor guy.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Anything else? No pressing questions. That's crazy.
I did have a question, but it's not related to the paperwork. Um,
All right.
it's a very stupid newbie question here, but I met with a
No, no.
guy first time I ever had an appointment earlier today, and the auction's on Friday. I've been harassing this guy for a while. Called his family members, called everybody. Today he picks up the phone. He's like, "Hey man," and I said, "You know why I'm calling." He was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "So when are we gonna have time?" And he's like 4. So, anyways, at this point in time, it seems like he has enough money to scrape together to reinstate it, but he's gonna need more time than than the time up to the auction to actually get it all together, put all of his affairs in order. So he's like, well, what the hell do I do to buy time? To me, based off my knowledge, the only thing I know, the only 2 options I thought he could do is bankruptcy, which I don't want to recommend anybody to file for bankruptcy. But,
Yeah.
and I thought that it was like too far out. No, it was too soon to do a loan modification. So I
Hmm.
said, to me, it was either bankruptcy or purchase and sale agreement. And we can put a clause in there that if he reinstates it by a certain date, that the purchase and sale agreement was not binding. That's what I was able to come up with, but I'm not really sure. I'm
Yeah.
open to opinions on it because I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really
So
cool.
that's a good question. Reinstatement, loan modification, bankruptcy. At this point, loan modification, it's probably too tight. I mean, it can happen, but you're right for thinking that. Bankruptcy, like you said, it just kind of puts a band-aid on a infected wound. It doesn't really solve the problem long term. That would probably just cause a lot more harm. So I
Yeah,
think you're right with the purchase contract, but I think the conversation with him, what's his name? Do you remember?
his name's John.
John. I feel like you're making this up if his name's John.
No,
I'm
I
joking.
no,
I'm
I
joking. I'm
swear to
messing with
God,
you.
this guy's
John
like, yo,
Adams. Yeah.
you can't get a
Uh,
hold of me, man, because I work 90 hours a week. I run a pizza place. I had to drive to the pizza place and say, hey, is John here? Like we agreed to. And I was there in the pizza spot.
that's crazy. Wow. Um, okay, so the question I would have for him is like, okay, so yes, you could do that, where you have a purchase contract wherein you have a contingency that if you're able to reinstate it by X date and time, that this is null and void. Or maybe that he pays you a fee, or I don't know. You could figure that out. But
Mhm.
what I would try to do is really like level with this guy and be like, okay, so you mentioned like you need more time to get your affairs in order. Like, what does that look like? So, what does that actually mean? Like, get your affairs in order? Do you know?
Mm, no, no.
I would ask
I'm
them.
not that good at sales, and I don't, even though I've spoken to him about it, I don't feel like I've like gotten through to him. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's tough to get through to people that are not that they haven't. It's hard to get through to people if you can't get them to actually see like their real situation, which is why I'm saying you should ask him. So I would ask
Mhm.
him and say, "Hey man, like I would love to help you with this, but like when you say like get your affairs in order, like what do you mean by that?" And he's like, "Oh, well,
Mhm.
I got to scrape together the money and I got to okay, but like so how much is the reinstatement to bring the loan current? Oh, it's 10 grand. Okay, got it. So it's 10 grand, and is that including the attorney's fees? Did you account for the attorney's fees? Oh, how much are
Right.
the attorney's fees? Oh, that's going to be like 3 to 4 grand usually. Oh, so I
Right.
got to have 13? So it could go that way.
Mhm.
Or maybe he's accounted for that. Yeah, I've accounted for that. Okay, cool. And how much do you have like currently, like today, if you were to wire the funds? Oh, I have 3 grand. Okay, so there's an additional seven that we need. Where do you plan on getting that additional seven? Well, I don't know. That's
Right.
what I got to figure out over the next 2 days. Oh, so you don't, did he talk to you and tell you that he has anybody like in mind that he's going to get the money from?
No, the most he said was he was like, I think I could scrape it together, but I mean, I could
Hmm.
tell that means he doesn't have it
Ah,
personally,
okay.
but I know that he knows some folks that could probably help him out. But again, on such short notice, and then he has to actually get it to the attorney. So I still don't really
Yeah.
think there's enough time for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think you're in a good spot. Eli, thanks for being on the call. Um, I think you're in a good spot because, if the auction's on Friday, I mean, you can still get this stopped. Is this deal in New York?
Yep, it's in New York.
Okay. I don't have any experience with that. I don't know if those foreclosures go through the courts or if it's a deed of trust. I
No,
think,
oh yeah, no, it goes through. So because it goes through the court, I got like mad information on all these people. Like I
okay.
know every single time they've been in foreclosure, what they did to get out of foreclosure, all the actual documents. I know who the trustee is. I know where the
Mm,
attorney's office. I know all that type of stuff. Just offer it.
okay. Do you know the lender?
I could pull that up. I can pull
Okay.
that up. Yeah, one
Once you
second.
get it,
Yeah, hold on.
what I would do, well, I'd have a conversation with this guy and I would
Yeah.
simply ask him this. Okay, so do you plan on getting that? Where are you getting it from? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let me ask you this because, we're talking today. Let's say today's Thursday, tomorrow, right? Today's Thursday, Thursday morning. The auction's tomorrow at X time. Okay. So we got about 24 hours. Um, I can tell you that right now, like, we don't even have the full reinstatement amount. And the issue is like we need to get that ASAP. And in my experience, have never seen, and this is true if this is you, especially if it's like your first appointment, I've never seen someone be able to scrape the money together, get all this, get the reinstatement, and do that in time to be able to stop the auction. What I have seen is that we've been able to, you can use me as an example, we as a group, right? We've been able to stop auctions with less than 24 hours if we're able to buy the property. So I know that's not your goal, but let me ask you a question. Do you feel like it's riskier for you to have some certainty that the auction's taken care of, that you have some money in your pocket, that we could give you some time to be able to actually relocate, find your next place so the bank's not kicking you out on the streets? Or do you feel like it's riskier for you to try to take a chance, to hope that you get the reinstatement at time, to hope that you can even get the funds together and wired in time so that you don't lose everything? Like in reality, like what's riskier for you? Ask him that question. That's a really hard one to answer in his
That makes a lot of
position.
sense.
What is he going to say? I think it's riskier for me to take the money for sure and get the auction stopped. Like
It's
he's not
just
going to say that.
those good questions like that, man. They just don't, you know what I mean? Because I've just gotten, I've done wholesale for a while. Like I ran operations and dispositions for a company and whatever the hell. And that was great. But the actual sales stuff and like talking to the sellers themselves, I'm
Hmm.
just does not come off the top of the head in those moments at all.
Me
Um,
either. I've had to practice. You got it, dude. Like, and go back and listen to this recording, and just write it down,
mhm.
right? And then, if he says, I don't know, well, it's like, well, if you really thought about it though, because a lot of people are gonna try to get out of that. Well, like, what if you really thought
Yeah.
about it? Well, I guess it's riskier to la, la, la. Okay. Is losing the house something that you're willing to settle for? Well, I don't know. Well, whose choice is it if you sell or not? It's mine.
Yep.
Okay, so how do you want to go where do you want to go from here? Just
Yeah.
ask him, because I'd love to help
Mhm.
you out, but like it's okay. We can always go buy another house, and that's when you pull away. Like
Mm,
and don't be like you don't want to be a douchebag, right? But it's like,
yeah,
hey, like it's seriously, it's okay. Like we can always go buy another house. Like there's other families to help. But if you want our help, I'm committed to doing this for you. But I need to know that you're all in.
mm.
So where do you want to go from here? You know, and you might get something from them. And if anything, dude, even if you can't stop the auction, even if you don't know what to do, even a blah blah blah, at least you got practice overcoming this objection and getting someone to commit.
Yeah. Like a week and a half ago, bro, I was so terrified to call people.
Dude,
And then I
I
was
still
just like,
struggle
yeah,
with
I'm
it,
at this
bro.
appointment. Yeah.
I still struggle with it. It's real.
If anything, it is practice though. Like if any to me, it's a win because it's a proof of concept.
Yeah,
I'm very committed to this. So,
yeah. Good
it
for you,
is
dude.
something, but yeah, I
Let
appreciate
us
it.
know how we can help, man.
We'll see what I'm talking to him tomorrow morning. I told him, I said, listen, man, he said, I need some time to think. Got the good old time to think objection. And
Yeah.
I said, listen, there's not too much of a difference between like now and an hour from now, but there's a big difference between us talking at 9 a.m. versus 10 a.m. So we're talking at 9.
Totally.
So,
Yep.
okay. I appreciate
100%.
it.
Good work, dude. Keep going.
Thank you.
All right. Last question if anyone's got anything. Thank you all for being here tonight. Hopefully this was helpful, at least going over the paperwork. And it's not to wow anybody and be like, oh, wow, this is groundbreaking stuff. But I mean, you'd be surprised the people that this paperwork thing holds them back when it just doesn't need to be. It's like focus on getting the deal, right? Um, Nick, hey, yeah, I recorded this, so I'll go ahead and post this in the group. And yeah, y'all let me know this week if you have any questions or anything that you need kind of, in your real estate journey. I'm here to help and there's no strings attached. So
Quick
Evan,
question.
oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh yeah, just does the due on sale clause ever happen with the lender?
What's that? No, I'm joking. It, uh yeah, the due on sale clause, it does happen. Um I've never had it happen on like any of my like personal deals that I've like bought. I have had it happen on a deal that I wholesaled, um, where I got in the middle and we resolved the situation. It wasn't really, it's not that difficult, but it can happen. Do you have like another question on that?
Um, do you put it in like a trust to like avoid the due on sale clause?
I've never done that. I know people that do. What I recommend is buying it in an LLC. If you want to name the LLC like the address, you could do that. I don't. I just put it in mine because I'm just not super worried about it. But buy it in an LLC, and then like worst case scenario, if they try to call the loan due, then there's different ways around it where then you could put it into a trust. I'd probably ask for forgiveness later because in my opinion, it can kind of just complicate things on the front end and having to explain to the like it's sub two is already confusing enough to a seller that
Mm,
doesn't know what
yeah,
we're doing. So being like, all right, we're gonna have a trust, and I'm gonna be the beneficiary though, but da, da, da. And then they're gonna be like, wait, so am I selling it? Am I not? Like that can be. It's already confusing. People still are like, am I selling the property or am I renting it to you? Like,
yeah.
so I think a trust just adds another layer that maybe doesn't need to be there. But I mean, Caleb and like at Creative TC, they do trust as well. So if you're ever like really worried about it, maybe it's like a smaller lender or something like that, then I wouldn't blame you for doing that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Does your paperwork talk about that due on sale clause? What happens if it does happen? Do you talk about that since we're talking paperwork here?
Yeah, there's a due on sale acknowledgement, which explains like what it is. Um, in that case, I believe it states just that that both parties are willing to work with each other and be reasonable. Basically, it's kind of more generic because there's not always like a pre-designed way of how to handle it. There can't you can do that. That's just not what we've done. So, it's like, hey, both parties are going to work together to resolve it. Um, I think the easiest resolution in most cases is to deed it back, right? Deed it back to the borrower, which when the loan's called due, they give you, I think it's like 35 days to remedy the situation. You can pay off the loan or you can deed it back to the borrower. If you deed it back to the borrower, then you could, at that point, you could put it back into a trust, or you could literally just deed it back again. I know people that do that all the time. Um, or you could put it in like you could like sell it on like a contract for deed, like an executory contract where title doesn't transfer officially, but you're technically controlling the asset. So, but there's all types of things you do, but like, so it's not like they're just gonna like, you're gonna lose it and like you're gonna get foreclosed on immediately. Like, foreclosure process takes a while too. It's not like it's like you lose the house in 30 days.
From the paperwork, you don't get into all the what ifs. You just sellers don't make a big deal about it. You don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah, I don't. And
Yeah.
I used to really like emphasize talking about it with sellers. Like, I'd be like, okay, now here's the deal. Before we sign up for anything, there's this thing, due on sale clause where they could foreclose on you. And I just like, I don't know. I don't ever want to hide things from people, but I also don't want to make it like so scary because like I don't think it is like that scary. It doesn't have to be. Especially if like if it's you buying it and like the type of person that you are that you would take care of them, then like cool. If I'm assigning it, it's probably a different story. Because like I know who I am, and like I would do anything. I mean, I'm hopping into the middle of a deal that I wholesaled to help them. So it's like I think that's like proof enough, and I think everyone
Yeah.
in this group would do the same thing. I hope, right?
Mm.
And so how I talk about it now is I keep it really simple. I'm like, and I'm not saying this is what you should do or if it's even the right thing to do. This is just how I do it. I tell people, hey, it is important to know that this transaction, it's best if it's under the radar, because the bank's qualified you for the loan, not me. And so if you transfer title to me, there's a chance that they could have an issue with that. And so for me, it's much better if you keep it under the radar. Refer to me as like your asset manager or property manager if they ever call you. Let me have all communication with the bank. And if the bank ever has an issue with us transferring it, then it's just a matter of us restructuring paperwork. That's the conversation I have. Whether y'all think that's right, moral, not, I think it's pretty honest of what's going on without being like, okay, foreclosure, due on sale. Like, I just don't know if that's necessary. Because worst comes to worst, I would refinance it or pay it off. So yeah, good stuff. Anything else on that? Who's getting a deal this week? Anyone?
Gonna try
We're
to.
getting a deal this week. Come on now. We're gonna get a deal on Thursday. We're gonna get a deal tomorrow, Friday.
15% chance.
Let's go. 15%. Dang. All right. Jacob's getting a deal. He might. We'll see. Cool. Thank y'all for being here.
Hey, Evan, just a real quick question, if you have a minute. I'm
Yeah, of
brand new.
course.
Actually, I just stumbled upon like your YouTube channel and then your school account here. So I'm just now tapping into like your resources here. Um, is the main thing that you do, is it like creative finance? And then like my main interest right now. So I've got 9 rental properties, and I'm ultimately want to kind of get out of this rental thing. But I'd like to kind of capture that same kind of payday, or really I want to be the bank rather than be the landlord. So but
Mhm.
going forward, I think my main, I think my next steps are probably going to be to kind of implement this wrap, idea of taking on properties, either, some sort of creative finance way, probably sub two, but then wrapping them to an end buyer and then capturing like a down payment. Is that kind of your bread and butter? Is that kind of what you do? Or from my minimum of scouring your material, that's kind of what I gathered is your
Yeah.
go-to thing.
Yeah, I want to do more of it. I think like when I first started, it was mostly getting deals under contract and wholesaling just because I had no money. So I learned that and like tried to perfect that conversation around sub two. So wholesaled, and then we started doing buying rentals, kind of like what you're saying, right? We got 6 rentals, and then we started wrapping properties, and so we've done kind of a mix of everything, and now we do a lot of most of our stuff is right now is like even if we get it creative, we'll flip it like because we're working on foreclosures and getting stuff at pretty deep discounts where we can wholesale it, like put it on the market or flip it. But for the deals that are not like 70% minus repairs and they're above that, we're definitely usually wrapping those, especially if they need work. Because the nice thing about these wraps is like you can generally sell them as is. Like we've sold properties, we wrapped one like 2 months ago as is that was probably needed 90 to 100,000 in work. So,
Wow.
and it brings in good cash flow, and Like we've sold another one that needed like 60 and work. So like you don't really need to fix anything, honestly, unless there's a, like a foundation problem or like a leaky roof or something like that. Because that at that point too, that's going to mess with your asset, like your collateral, right, as the note holder.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So you kind of want to think about those things because, and the nice thing too, I know I'm getting on a tangent, but the nice thing about selling it as is like you keep your cash on the sidelines because if you got to spend 40 to get, to rehab it and they pay you a down payment of 20, it's like you're leaving money in the deal that you probably didn't need to, and you could have just reduced the purchase price for them.
Absolutely.
And so like you're in the deal, hopefully no money or maybe a little bit, or maybe you make some money on the front end. But then the cool thing too is as they start to improve that home, it's like your collateral is just becoming more valuable.
Love it. Yeah.
So that's how I would think about it. And especially on your rentals that have like things coming up, like that's how I'm thinking about it. Like we got one in Clarksville actually that our lease is going to be up in March, that I was actually talking to Eli in the group about, for a buyer because it's like, we got the HVAC probably coming up and like roof, and it's like those are things I don't really want to spend the money on right now. So, do you have questions on like the wrap specifically? Because I actually have there is a YouTube video, like a training that we did here in the community where we
Yeah,
talked
saw
about
that.
that. Okay, cool.
Well,
If
I
you have
haven't, I
questions on that, let
haven't
me know.
I haven't watched that video, but I did like just I
Cool.
noticed it on your YouTube channel and I was like, man, that's got to be like my next hour and 15
Yeah.
minutes, I think it was. But yeah, that's got to be my next, long endeavor. But and the thing is, I've looked into some different like people that do it, and
Mhm.
it's just like they want $1,500 to $2,000 for some course, and it's like at that point is like I've got to ask myself like, if I do, go all in like that and put 2 grand down, like, am I going to be focused enough to go pursue this to make my money back and start really making money, or like is it just something I want to do? Like the rentals right now, they kind of pay, for my lifestyle, which is minimal, but I just, I'm kind of sick and tired of dealing with like they're Section 8 rentals, so they're kind of, it's like babysitting these tenants. So
Mm,
I don't know. I just
yeah.
feel like I gotta kind of pivot and move out of the rental space, but
I don't blame you, man. The more rentals I've bought, the more I've been like, why did I do this? Now, there's other people in the group that are like David has a ton of rentals, and it's like some people have the ability to think longer term, or even have like the cash to be able to be longer term. Because some of us don't have, a ton in reserves where we can just go spend money on HVACs and things going out, right? But also like with vacancy and like, I mean, I can't tell you how much money I've spent on my rentals this year, like
yeah,
an absurd amount, to the point
yeah,
where I'm like, gosh, dang it, this like hurts, you
yeah.
know?
Well, they're nickel
Um,
and dime me. They're the same thing, and I just feel like I've
uh,
tuned into some YouTube guys or tuned into some people like lately. And they're just like rentals are they'll nickel and dime you, and it's like they just erode your cash flow. And fortunately, because they're Section 8, they produce like 800 or 900 bucks a month each one of them. So unfortunately, that's a good enough, healthy enough profit or spread, but. Otherwise, it's just
yeah.
like they're just nickel and diming me, and then I got to chase the tenants around and be like, "Why do you have chickens in the yard?" It's like,
That sucks. Yeah, dude. I like, let's see, David. It takes 5 to 10 to get the stomach for it, but the next inflation boom. Yeah, yeah. That's like the one thing that makes me hold on. Like the nights that I have where I just want to fire sell everything. Be like, I'm just gonna sell it all. I'm just gonna owner finance it. I'm so tired of this. You know. I think of what David said. I'm like, all right. What would what would older Evan say? Right? What would he be thankful for? And so I think holding on to some of them, like we have a lot of them that are 2.5% rates. We have one that's like 0% for 30, so it's like we don't really want to like sell those off, but some of them, man, that just need too much work or they're older, it's like it's time to move on. So if you have questions on that, especially after watching the video, message me in the community and we can hop on like a phone call if you want and just talk through it. But I don't think you need to pay for a course. Like it's not that complicated, and I'm happy to give you some pointers on like what we've done.
appreciate it. And great.
Yeah, dude.
I'm very, very happy that I found your group, and yeah, I'll tune in and
Yeah,
yeah,
happy
hopefully
you're
be
here, man. That's super cool. Did you just find it randomly, or like I'm curious?
yeah, just I don't know, randomly looking at rap stuff and like
That's so cool.
and
Awesome.
then stumbled upon it and I was like, then I found out what school was, I guess, and I was like, let me look for some freak group in there, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same guy that I just saw on YouTube, and I was like, hold on, and
Oh wow.
I was like, this is crazy. And I was like, all right. Well, and this was right when I was like about to pull like, the move for like 1,600 bucks for this guy's rap course. And I was like, I don't
Nah,
know, man.
bro.
Yeah.
Get
I was
that
like,
out of
it,
here.
it doesn't seem
Get
that
that.
complicated. It's like, yeah, it just,
It's
yeah,
not, dude. I've I got a course that's like 20, 25 grand that, you know, I was in, and it taught me a lot. I would pay for the course again. It was worth it. But I can share with you a lot of those things that I'm an open book. There's nothing to like hide. It all comes back around. So that's cool that you found it, dude. I literally just started doing YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff again, like probably about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. So been like really working on trying to like reach new people, and because like I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. Where are you located at?
Delaware.
Delaware. Okay. Yeah. So it's like you never know who you're going to meet. It's pretty cool. So thanks for being here, man. And I appreciate y'all. I got to go play some pool and kick someone's butt and some pool. So I'll see y'all later.
Awesome.
Bye.